In chapter 1956, the fallout from Kevin's suspicion about Hayden's gender unfolds as Mrs. Queen experiences a roller coaster of emotions. The chapter begins with Mrs. Queen's anxious inquiry about how Kevin discovered Hayden's true identity. To Mrs. Queen's surprise, she learns that Kevin questioned whether her eldest son is a woman, sparking newfound hope for Hayden's romantic future. Mrs. Queen's emotional journey takes us on a roller coaster ride. Initially scared about the revelation, she quickly sees the silver lining. Kevin's suspicion implies a potential romantic interest in Hayden. Her mood swings from fear to excitement, anticipating a future where Hayden might escape old Mrs. York's chosen wife for Kevin. As Hayden recounts her interactions with Kevin, Mrs. Queen eagerly suggests probing him for evidence of her daughter's femininity. Hayden, however, dismisses this idea, asserting that Kevin has no concrete proof and emphasizing that he will eventually marry the woman chosen by old Mrs. York. Her pragmatic approach contrasts with Mrs. Queen's hopeful fantasies. Mrs. Queen's enthusiasm peaks when she contemplates the prospect of Hayden becoming part of the prestigious York family. Her excitement prompts her to encourage Hayden to observe Kevin closely, subtly hoping for a romantic connection between them. Hayden, true to her nature, rejects the idea of marriage, expressing her discomfort with transitioning back to a woman's role. The mother and daughter conversation reflects the generational gap in their perspectives. Mrs. Queen, envisioning a potential son in law in Kevin, believes in the power of love and compatibility. In contrast, Hayden, accustomed to her role as a man, resists the idea of conforming to traditional gender norms. The chapter ends with Mrs. Queen's decision to invite Kevin over for dinners, signaling her intention to foster a connection between him and Hayden. Meanwhile, Donald, Hayden's father, expresses his support for the potential match, emphasizing Kevin's discerning eyes in choosing a partner. The familial dynamics, laced with humor and optimism, add depth to the storyline. Mrs. Queen's unwavering belief in Hayden's ability to handle any situation contrasts with her persistent hope for a romantic connection between Hayden and Kevin. Donald's light-hearted comment about the superiority of the York family's offspring adds a touch of levity to the familial discussions.